Hi everyone all over the world. We are live, coming in from Beatledom. Yep, that's right. You're joining us on a fantastic show. Got to tell you what it is. Super Beatles Collectors, episode 2. You can't go past this show. It's huge. It's worldwide. We get so many emails. We get so many texts. We get so many messages, don't we, Terry Crane?
We get them all over the world, EP. It's amazing.
And let me tell you, we've got so many special guests on today. I've got to introduce Andrew Croft, the man who wrote the magazine Beatlology, selling all over the world, selling here in Australia, selling everywhere, believe me or not. Went 10 years. How are you today, Andrew?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. And we also got Guy Smith. We love Guy. He's got a great collection behind him, and he's been collecting sheet music. He's been collecting everything. And I want everybody out there, this is the dedication. I want you to see Guy as a little guy. There's Guy in 1964. Tell us about that photo, Guy.
Well, I don't remember it too well, but after the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, my aunt bought me the sweatshirt and the wig, and I ended up in that photo, which I still have.
You know, Guy, I got to tell you, that's amazing because I got nothing left. You know what I mean? I was 6 years old in 1964, so I didn't know much. That's why it was like 67. I sort of understood music with the Monkees. But let me tell you, to have that photo now, that is just, you got to frame that in your lounge room. Have you got that in the lounge room, or have you got it in the kitchen? Where have you got the photo?
It's actually in my Beatles collection room with all my other Beatles stuff.
Fantastic. Now, we want to go straight to Andrew. Tell us about the magazine Beatlology, how long it went for, and what was the thoughts behind that when you launched it, Andrew?
Well, Beatlology was launched with a couple of partners back in 1998. And at the time, we were aware that there was a big collector's field out there. My partner was dealing in high-end collectibles. I've been collecting records for 20 odd years, since the late 70s. And we realized that there wasn't a regular ongoing publication that dealt specifically with collectibles. Literally, my friend Peter was in my studio one day, and we kind of just looked at each other and went, let's do a magazine. We've never done a magazine before, but I'm a graphic designer. I had been publishing or doing the artwork production for a lot of other magazines, so it was kind of a natural extension. And we started in September 1998, and a lot of people, mostly relatives, were going, what could you possibly write about the Beatles that hasn't been written before? And of course, we were dumbfounded by the number of requests of known published authors, as well as a lot of fans who had, one-off records and rare stuff and memorabilia as well. That almost with every issue, there was something that no one had ever heard of. Bruce Spicer was a great contributor. And I think in the second or third issue, he had an article on a test pressing of a British EP that was never produced. So this was all new information that was still coming to the surface, and the magazine served as a fantastic platform for those people to get their articles out. So I don't ever want to say that I wrote Beatlology. I did write a few articles, but we had such a great crowd of people who wanted to contribute. The list is immense. Russ Lease in Maryland was writing the auction article, so he would let us know about the stuff that most of us couldn't afford, that were being sold at auction. And then we started getting into a bit more of the history as well, so not just the collectibles, getting into history. And I had been collecting, by that point, records for 20 odd years, and thought, well, what else could I collect that wasn't going to break my bank? Because, I had a young family at the time, 2 young girls, and was just thumbing through the stuff that I had, and came across a piece of sheet music that my wife, when she was my girlfriend, bought me for Christmas. And I looked at it and I thought, well, if there's a piece of sheet music for Help, in 1965, maybe there's sheet music for the other 200 odd songs that the Beatles published. So I started, looking into that, and this was, eBay was around as one source, but oddly enough, I crossed paths with Mitch McGeary, whose website, www.rarebeatles.com. He was interested in some Canadian collectibles and so on. And he contacted me one day and he says, I'm buying a collection and there's 30 pieces of mint condition sheet music that when the person bought them in mid 1967, immediately put them in plastic covers. And I'm only going to buy the collection if you buy all 30 of these sheets. Well, of course, that started the landslide that was the search to find, the piece of sheet music for virtually every song that the Beatles released. And, the magazine published for 10 years. It was a great 10 years. It was a labor of love. Really only the printing company and the post office made any money off the magazine. But it was great to go to the Beatle Fest in New Jersey and in Chicago, talk to a lot of fans. And as I say, almost every issue there was an article that, something new, something interesting that was being discovered in the Beatles collecting, and then in the history and so on. So yeah, it's, published for 10 years and has led, or not led, but continued my lifelong love of the Beatles and their music.
Well, that's amazing there, Andrew. As I said, we do appreciate you being on the show. Now, Terry, I'd like you to hold up your new book. That's the second edition. It's been extended. Please tell everyone now what the book is about and where they can actually buy it. Hold it up.
Well, it's the book about the 150 items that came out in the U.S. Once the Beatles played Ed Sullivan. That's always a great little mark to put there. And what's amazing about this book, EP, that it was designed with all the colors and all the graphics and everything by an amazing person that if I knew who it was, EP, you got him on the show today. Andrew was the guy that helped design the book here. He did a wonderful job. He took an idea that I had and some, a couple images and all that. And he took the idea and made it 100-fold, which when the images always came back, I go, well, this is going to be amazing. So I'm always indebted to Andrew, who helped out put this book together in the form that it is. And you can get this now, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the stuff like that online. So I'm having a great run with it, and I'm now into the second edition with it. So I'm fortunate that I've had so many people help me go along with this book, and Andrew is one of those.
That's amazing, and I'm glad you described that. Where can they actually buy it? And that's available everywhere on the net. Just give us a few links where they can buy the book.
Well, in the U.S., you got Barnes & Noble, and you got Amazon and that kind of thing. And even overseas, in the UK market, the Amazons and all that, and tradition.com is a big seller of this over in Europe in that market there, where you can get it like that. And I know, EP, you even got it in Australia through some different fish pond and that kind of things.
I've got the first edition, not the extended one, but who knows what's coming in my mail down the track.
That's
now,
right.
We got to move on to Guy. Guy, I want you to talk, please, Guy, a little bit about some of your sheet music here. I'll show a few pictures, and we'll just move to the side a bit. Just tell us a bit about your collection, Guy, while we got you. Tell us about that.
Well, I started the sheet music because my Beatles room was getting full, and the sheet music didn't take up a lot of space. So that's how I branched off into the sheet music. And the first thing I did was get Andrew's book. So pretty much anything I know about sheet music collecting is what I learned from Andrew's book. So he knows what I know, plus a lot more. Anyway, this first picture, this is the style of sheet music that they used for publishing the songs in the U.S. in 1964. As they moved along through the Beatles' career, the company Hanson that published the sheet music, or a majority of it in the U.S., they would change styles. So now we've jumped to the Abbey Road album. So this was the style that they used for the sheet music for the songs that came from the Abbey Road album.
Right. I'll keep going through the sheet music because it's quite a bit. What's that dot sheet music, is it?
Yes. Maybe Andrew would like to speak more about this, but there was only a couple of songs that originally came out with this style. But during that brief time they used the style, they reissued a whole lot of the earlier sheet music using this style. So even though that a lot of the songs, it's the second version of the sheet music, they're very collectible for some reason, and they really sell for a lot. This style of sheet music, even the ones that are the second versions of the sheets. Andrew, do you want to say anything about this style?
This was first used for the Hello, Goodbye, and I'm the Walrus in December 1967. And the one in the top middle there, Hello, Goodbye, the first printing, they used a blue background. So for that sheet, it was blue and white. And for I Am the Walrus, it was black and white. And then in 1968, Hansen had been doing reprints of a number of the different sheets, sheets like Yesterday and Michelle. I think they reprinted them almost every month for about 3.5 years, right up to 1970. So I guess there was sort of that decision that, well, if we're going to do reprints, they were going to standardize it, and they used the same artwork. The design actually comes from Capitol Records in the U.S. And was used for the full page ad in Billboard. And the artist, John Hammersveld, I actually got in contact with him when I was writing the book in 2002, 2003. And he actually didn't know that the artwork had been used for the sheet music. So I don't know if he ever got any payment for that. He certainly got paid for the advertisement that he did for Capitol. But as Guy pointed out, some of those versions that are reissues in 1968 are worth substantially more than the original. So if you look at Penny Lane there, you can find the original Penny Lane, for $10, $15. That particular sheet can sell for several $100s in the John Hammersveld illustration reissue format. So it is a bit crazy. The first sheet that I encountered that was one of the reprints, I actually got from a West Coast dealer that he found 4 copies of From a Window, which is a John Lennon, Paul McCartney composition, but not recorded by the Beatles. So the interesting thing is that sheet came out with the Beatles illustration with the text that said recorded by the Beatles, although it was never recorded by the Beatles. And I think the last sheet that I saw sell online sold, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, sold for $2,100 and something odd dollars, which is incredible. But there's such a finite number of those sheets available.
Do you have one of those, Andrew?
I do. Yep.
How many do you have, Andrew? 1 or 2? Have you got a few there? Because if you do, your retirement money's there.
I believe I do actually keep track of it in a database, because the problem is every once in a while I'll see a sheet and it's like, oh, gotta have that. And then, wait, maybe I already have 4 copies of that. I better check. I believe I have 770 something individual pieces of sheet music. And that's primarily US and UK sheets. And I have approximately 200 to 250 US songbooks. Hansen was really interested in printing to make money, that's for sure, as you'll see when we look at some of the samples. So I have about 250 US songbooks, but just like the Australian Library of Songbooks you held up, I think the US songbooks take up about 3 feet of a bookcase of that I have. but the
I'm
UK.
going to show you something.
songbooks
I'm going to
take
show
up
you
south.
something in a minute, Andrew. That's out of my collection. But as I said, let's keep moving now with Guy's collection. Keep telling me what these are, Guy, as I keep going.
These are some of the early ones that were published by different publishing companies before Hansen kind of locked down, that they had the rights to all of them. So these are the very early ones that, just like with the Beatles records, that the first few came out on different labels. Here's what Andrew was talking about before, how one sheet, the same song just kept being reissued. You could see there on the bottom left the different logos that Hansen used. The Hansen, they used something called Sheet Music Institute. They used keys, and they also changed the logos within, the different Hansen keys and Sheet Music Institute. So you can find the same song, if you're really into the minutia collecting, with different logos on the bottom. Especially
right, here we go. We'll keep going.
Yeah. These are the ones from the Hard Day's Night era. And they put out 6 songbooks too with the same style photo on the front.
Excellent.
And again, these are the ones from the Help album, and as you can see, they kind of had a theme going on for the U.S. sheet music, where they would use the same style, for each album. And these are the Let It Be ones. Unfortunately, a lot of the Let It Be ones have that plain brown cover. They don't have a picture of the Beatles, and that makes it a lot less desirable to collect them because there's no photo. But those are the original U.S. issue of those sheets, so they have to stay.
I'm going to ask you, how rare is it becoming to get the book from the actual Let It Be box that came out when it originally came out in 1970, that came with the record? Like, I'm lucky enough, I have one of those books, care of my great friend Churchill at Breakfast with the Beatles. He had 2 copies, so I was fortunate enough to get one. He paid 99 cents for it, and it's immaculate. How hard is it now to get that original book that came with the record in that hard
you
cover?
You have to be careful because it was reprinted at one point. So there is the original book, and typically the spine glue on those fails pretty easily, so they kind of fall apart. You probably would want to look up online to see the sort of telltale information on the reprints, but they were reprinted. But I think even the original is semi easy to come across. Just hunt and choose for it, because I don't think I would pay more than maybe $25 to $30 for it. But if it's pristine mint bona fide original, $50 to $60. But some people are still asking hundreds of dollars for it.
And it's harder to get in the U.S. because the book was never issued in the U.S.
Right.
But, now with international auction places, eBay, it's a lot easier to find them than it used to be. It used to be pretty.
Well, it's hard to get in Australia, I can tell you that now. Anyway, let's move on to that one.
That's just again different styles that was used for sheet music, but they kept the same style, for several different sheets. So, but they did change styles a lot. I think those ones on the right, Andrew, are those like second issues of
the one with the Kansas City circus image. Some of them were first issues in 1965. I think when the Starline series of singles came out in the U.S., they did Boys and possibly one or two other title in that format. But if there are other titles on that, those were reissues. And I think some of those, like I'd have to go through my stack here, but some of those are reissues from even into 1968. So even when they were doing the Van Hammersveld illustration reprints, they were still issuing some of the other ones in that format.
Okay, we move on.
Yep,
what about that one?
Yeah, those are from the White Album. they started issuing the songs from the White Album. In the U.S., they did issue a lot of the songs, almost all of them. In some of the albums, the UK issued a lot more of the songs than there was issued in the US, but for the White Album, most of the songs were issued in the US. You know, they're pretty hard to find. You know, if you had a set of all of them, that would be worth quite a lot. What I showed you there was only about half. That's all that I have.
What about that? Now, that rock and roll music one in the corner there, I've actually got it. It's an Australian copy I've got. It was printed in Australia because it's got the name of the place here where they were doing all the music publishing, but the same cover. So I've got the Australian version of that rock and roll music, sheet music.
Yeah, the reason I made that slide was just to show that even songs that weren't written by any of the Beatles, you know, they released them in the 60s with as individual sheets with pictures of the Beatles on the cover because the Beatles recorded them, and then they still sold a lot just by having the picture, even though the Beatles didn't write them.
Exactly. Now, Terry, I've got to tell you, we're loving this show. I'm already getting texts and private things now coming in on my phone, how they're loving it. It's actually going live to certain Beatles sites at the moment as we speak. And I've got to tell everybody out there, I cannot get over the amount of Beatle books that are coming out on a weekly basis. And I do want to mention one Facebook site out there, right? Beatles in Print, Together and Solo. I've joined. I ask everyone to go out there and join as well. It's just a fantastic Facebook page, and it just keeps you up to date with all the new stuff that's coming up. I can't keep up, Andrew. Like in the 60s, books were coming out, but at a slow pace. But now weekly, it's like we're being bombarded by Beatle books. I can't get over it. Have you noticed that or not, Andrew?
Maybe I shouldn't tell you that I'm currently working on 3 different Beatle books for other people.
Well,
so when I was introduced to Terry, it was through Canadian author Pierce Hemmingson. I worked on his massive book that goes into a lot of detail on the history of the Beatles in Canada. I'm currently working on part 2 of that, so that's going to be out probably within the year. And then, of course, thanks to Terry, I've also picked up another small publisher book on the Beatle fan clubs. So it's the interesting thing is I can do the design and layout work, but I'm sure as Terry will attest to. When I started working with him on his book, I said, well, if you'd like me to go through it and edit it, because I do know, most of the material. So it became a collaborative effort, and, it was partly a labor of love, and, it's led to further projects. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask Andrew, are you going to write your own book on something on the Beatles?
Sorry, me?
Yeah, will you be writing a book yourself since you know how to do it and helping everybody else?
Or already have.
Is that a book, is it?
Yeah, that came out in 2003. This is the book that Guy has referred to. So basically, it is a book with what was known at the time, all of the Beatles sheets and songbooks.
Where can they currently buy that?
I'm not sure if I have. I think I might have it on the Beatlology website. So it's www.beatle without an E ology.com.
I'm sure one of your biggest buyers is Terry Crane, because I know that he buys things and he amasses it in his garage. This guy buys everything. Now, Andrew, we're going to go to you now. We want to have a look at your fantastic rare stuff that you want to show us. Take your time and show all the Beatle fan in the world. I'm excited about this. Aren't you, Terry?
I can't hardly wait, EP.
Well, as I say, I've got 770 odd individual sheets. I think I only have about 70 here, but they are sort of the key ones. I thought you might get a kick out of this one, of course, because that's Love Me Do from Australia.
Oh, thank you. That's a good one. I'll keep my eyes open for that one.
Yeah. And
Unless you got 2 copies and you want to send me one, no problem.
And the B-side. The B-side, P.S. I Love You. So
thank you.
And one quick mention to another country, because I live in Canada. I'll just try not to have this all fall. There is the only piece of sheet music that was ever published in Canada. So if you look at the bottom, across the bottom there, it says Leeds Music Canada.
Right.
So that is the only one that ever was published and printed solely in Canada. And of course, there is the US edition. If I can find the US edition. So that's got a different publisher on the bottom of it there. But of course, you have to have the one that's 60 cents. You have to have the one that's 75 cents. And then you have to have the one that's 75 cents with a different publisher credit on it. So,
well, nowadays 75 cents has become $1 million. So that's great. Let's keep going.
So Andrew,
that sheet will sometimes sell for $75 now. It's can be a bit pricey, but you can also pick them up fairly inexpensively. And I think Guy also had on his preview, he had the artist copy. So that's probably a cheaper edition that would go to musicians if they wanted to. They can't figure out where my head has to go. There we go.
That's right. You got all the square there. You're fine. Just bring it up to the screen, zoom it in, zoom it out. You're center. We see you perfect.
So I think probably a few of the key ones that bear mentioning would be this little gem, because it does generally garner quite a high price still. And that's the first edition of Love Me Do, which is the UK edition. Unfortunately, if you're a real collector, there are 2 versions, because there are 2 different addresses at the bottom there for the publishing company. But that's a gorgeous sheet, because what I found was really interesting with some of these photos is this photo is the one where George Harrison has a black eye, because he was roughed up outside the cavern only, less than a month before the Beatles went into the recording studio, because they replaced Pete Best with Ringo Starr. So George is sporting a black eye in this photo, and
I think they call it a shiner.
An interesting collectible. In no particular order.
Let's go for it.
Yeah. A lot of the early UK sheets used photos by Astrid Kircher.
Yeah, beautiful.
From Me to You and Thank You Girl. Then they started using the Dezo Hoffman photos.
Oh, that's beautiful, that one.
Yeah. Then when, of course, I Want to Hold Your Hand broke big in '64. There's the original, I Want to Hold Your Hand. But then, of course, there's the one they printed probably within a few months because it was so popular. And the one they printed probably towards the end of the 60s, because one thing you can notice is that the prices change. So typically they started out at 2 shillings and 6 pence. So 2 with a 6 and the little mark on it. And then went up to 3 pence, and then went up to 4 pence, and then switched over to 20p when the UK decimalized in 1970. You also have to keep your eye out for some of the truly strange ones. So in '64, of course, when the Beatles broke big, a lot of the record companies were scrounging to find their alternative recordings. So anything they did in Hamburg, they scrounged them, and of course they even put out sheets with Tony Sheridan on them. So although I think that might be the only one that they have. This particular one is when you start coming across a lot of these sheets, you start finding copies where wow, that sheet looks like it was just printed yesterday. And the reason for that is because some of these sheets were printed only yesterday. So you have to look for the telltale signs. So in this particular one, if you notice the red stripe at the top, There's a gap between the stripe and the photograph.
Yep.
And this one, there isn't. So it's kind of interesting. You start tracking down the idiosyncrasies of some of the reissues and the reprints. So not only did the sheet music companies continually reissue the sheets, but they were also copied at some point. So I'll just move up a bit. Of course, you get into A Hard Day's Night.
Of course, fascinating stuff there, Andrew. We're loving it.
So there's an odd one. This is the only sheet that they did in the UK, A Hard Day's Night, that has Ringo specifically on it. Most of them were, with the Hard Day's Night. That's a gorgeous one because for whatever reason they chose this color green for Tell Me Why, and the other ones are either red or pink or So
I've never seen that Ringo's themes song sheet.
It's one of the harder ones to find. Some of the collectors that I've run across have also found a number of these sheets with different prices. So this one's 2 and 6 pence. Someone's found them with 3 pence, and someone's also found them without a price on them. So I mean, it's just many different variations for one reason or another. We get up into the Help era, and I think Guy had a few of these from the US, so that's the UK for I Need You. But they also used what we call the Smoking Ringo version, because if I got it, yeah, there we go. I get it up to the camera. There's Ringo, and of course he's smoking. It's 1965. Everybody smoked.
I've never seen that one.
Let me flip through. Otherwise, we are going to be here for a heck of a long time.
No, that's all right, Andrew. The world can wait. It's okay.
Okay.
Terry, what? Isn't this fascinating stuff with Andrew? It's great.
It always amazes me that you could get that you just go, well, let's instead of look at records, look at sheet music, and then the whole world opens up about behind what goes on with this.
Well, I just want to tell everybody this show is on the Beatles sheet music and songbooks. Then we're going to do separate shows on each Beatles, and then we have another show planned. We won't mention what that one is, all right? It's a surprise.
So if you like, what I could do is show you a few US, the early sheets. I'll go back here because...
Yes, please, Andrew. I'm into that.
Just in case people are wondering what's snapping, I have my entire sheet music collection in a series of binders, and they're sealable. So the cool thing is they're in plastic sheets, but I can zip this up and they're completely dust-free. Let me show you, if you like, the worldwide review of a U.S. sheet that has probably never been seen before. Of course, now I have to pretend that I know where it is.
I can appreciate you got 700 and something sheets. You can't find one. It's okay.
I have 6 of these binders.
That's good for when you go to conventions.
I'm sure everybody's on the edge of their seat, right?
I'm on the edge of my seat. The problem is I collect stuff and my wife puts it outside in the street and people get it for free. That's the only problem I've got with collecting.
Andrew, let me ask you a question, Andrew. In the 60s in Canada, which versions of the sheet music would you have found there in the shops, the US or the UK's? Since there was
just the US version.
The US one.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. Because the Beatles, obviously, they were out in the UK a full year before they were out in North America. Although Capitol Records did release "Love Me Do" in Canada a year before they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, Hanson Publishers did have a little bit of catching up to do. As far as I know, this is the only copy of this sheet that exists. I've never seen. I'd be interested if anybody else has this. But I think what happened was when Starline did the reissues of the Beatles songs in October '65, they came out with "Love Me Do," and as you can see, they didn't even bother, to put an image on it. But that is an actual, and I love that typeface. But that is an actual Hanson sheet, and probably the coolest thing about, and this is the first Hanson sheet that I picked up, but the coolest thing about a lot of the U.S. sheets is that when you go through them and find copies, if you look on the back, so we just go, I got to make sure I get it the right direction. There we go. See that code there?
Yeah, I see it.
F12M, and then what is it? 1265. The really cool thing is that 1265 means December 1965. So the really cool thing is, unlike a lot of other records that, or a lot of other items, records were released on a particular day, but could have been pressed, any number of months after the release date. Virtually all of the Hanson sheets have the date code printed on the back that tells you exactly when that sheet was printed. So it really does make it interesting because, as Guy showed us earlier with the samples, having 4 or 5 different versions of Yesterday and Michelle, Hanson literally reprinted that sheet every month for about 3 years after it was released. So if you look on the back of the sheet, you'll find one from, February '67. So it'll say 267. You'll find it from January '68. So it'll have 168.
Andrew, I got to say it's on the songbooks too. Do you know that?
Yeah, I have most of the songbooks. They're not as
I'll give you an example, right? I just want to show you something since you mentioned it first. Here's one of mine. Hanson, one of my favorites. The Beatles cartoon songbook, you see that? That's very hard to get now. I don't know if you've seen it, Terry. More Beatle books, that's their songbooks. Now, as you said, there's a code. I'm going to show you the code. Can you read that code in the corner? It's coming. There it is.
There it is.
Can you read that?
That 1265.
That's it.
Yeah, so that was issued the same month as the that other sheet that I showed you.
So I'm just saying,
We
how
can work
cool
it out.
is this one? This is one of my favorites. And as I said, it's just the greatest songbook to own. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I'll let you continue and then I'll show you some.
Yeah. So here's a really, really common sheet. Yesterday. There's so many different versions of this. You can pick them up for $5 to $10. Really nothing too odd about this sheet. It looked the same. The logo in the bottom there changed from Keys to Sheet Music Institute to Charles Hanson later on. But if you want a really, really rare copy of that sheet, try finding the one that when the Beatles, it was mentioned that the Beatles were breaking up. They took the inset picture off the bottom corner. So I guess they figured, the Beatles are breaking up, but at least we still have Paul. At least we still have his sheets. We can produce his sheets till we're blue in the face.
Amazing stuff. I didn't know about the dates on the back of the books and the sheet music. That's something to know.
Yeah, they didn't do that in the UK. Now, let me see and do this in some sort of semi-order. Get into the later UK sheets. There's Paperback Writer, and Rain had the same cover, so that's got a really cool. So this is the UK version of the sheet. Now, you mentioned Australia as well.
That's the same ones that came out in Australia.
Some of them did use the same artwork. A lot of times in Australia, if you look at this one, it has the titles printed in black and the artwork is brown. I don't know this particular sheet in Australia, but a lot of them were printed in just one color in Australia and some other countries as well. So they were a little bit different. And then, of course, if you collect any of the sheets from Revolver is probably one of the more interesting albums. I came up with sort of a naming code for these. So I think this is Red and Orange Sun Face. And it's illustrated by Klaus Warman. I think his name is at the bottom there. Yeah, there we go.
Yep, it is.
He did all of the sheets for the Revolver album. And some of them are pretty phenomenal. So there's Tomorrow Never Knows. Yeah. Yeah.
And most of them were songs that weren't issued in the US on sheet.
Exactly. Yeah. Probably one of my favorite singles, Penny Lane, Strawberry Fields. In the UK, they used current photographs, but in the US, for whatever reason, they didn't use a current photograph. So I don't know if, Hanson might have been jumping the gun to get the new sheet out and just couldn't wait for the photo. But that photo is not even, I don't even think that's from 66. It's probably from 65.
Andrew, I'll just show you the Australian one, right? Here's the Australian one.
And that's gorgeous because it has the frame from the picture sleeve for the single.
Well, that's all right because I picked it up on eBay. Never late than never.
Well, hey, yeah, get them when you can.
Now, speaking about those early ones, while you're looking through the book there, I want to show you the early sheet music here. We were talking about different colour printing, as you mentioned. While we're talking about that, Is a Hard Day's Night. You can see that's like a green.
Right.
Australian again. Right. Here's a little help with my friends, the original one. Right. This is light green. And that's the original one. You can see it. And this one is actually black when I'm sick, or blue. It's very hard to see. It's actually blue when I'm 64.
Yep.
How great's that?
Well, they did it in black and white in the UK. Never get my head on the right side. They did it in black and white. Could you imagine what that sheet would have looked like if they printed that in color?
But also got to tell you,
like the centerfold in the Pepper album, it would have been absolutely gorgeous.
Here's the Australian sheet for Come Together, the original one, and that's in color.
Yep.
And on the back, it's in color too.
Is that the sheet or the songbook?
That's the sheet.
The individual sheet, okay. And then, of course, as Guy mentioned earlier, when we get up to the White Album, a lot of the UK ones use this format, and they're fairly common to find. They do pop up. Some of them do command up to about $100 in price. And then every now and then you'll see one of the very rare White Album ones where they used either George or Ringo for their songs on the album. And then I'll skip ahead 20 or 30 songs and I'll get to George's song. Then they used a strange illustration for a few of them in 1969. So Get Back, Don't Let Me Down, and a few others.
Yeah, they use that here in Australia too. So we got a lot, as I said, from the UK.
Yep. And then, as you mentioned, the UK and the Australian sheets for Abbey Road album look fairly similar, although George's song Something has a completely different cover to this. So it's not white with the, I think in Australia, it's got a blue or a green background, if I remember correctly.
I haven't got to that one yet, Terry. Not enough money.
I understand.
Yeah. And then the last album in the UK, you know, we get into Let It Be. Again, very common. But that album also has some incredibly rare releases as well. Actually, not so much.
Great when you can buy the original stuff as it came out, even now on eBay.
That's what I meant to hold up. So those are truly odd titles to release. Trying to think if I have.
And those two that you just held up are the ones in the U.S. where they had no picture on the cover. So, you know, even though they're boring sheets. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason for that was it might have had something to do with the movie rights because Let It Be was, technically even the U.S. album is on a red apple because it's sub-licensed as a soundtrack. It's not really a soundtrack, but it was like a movie album. So I think that probably had something to do with the licensing. And then for whatever reason, quite possibly Warner just didn't want to have to pay to use the Beatles image on the cover. So they didn't. Yeah.
It's very hard when they don't have them on the cover.
Yep.
While you're looking for your sheets there, Andrew, I'll just run through some of mine. Here's the Australasian Tour Souvenir album, which is hard to get. Don't laugh, Terry. This is rare. 7 and 6. That's a lot of money. You can see there, Sydney. How great's that? And it's a great condition. Look at this. I love this. Look.
Oh, don't let there be dead air. Guy, talk about sheets for a second.
No, it's all right. This is the other one here. Beatles for sale. Aren't you lucky I bought a few? That's Australian as well.
Yep.
Great cover. I love the pictures. Look at these pictures.
Yeah.
I love that John one.
Flip back to the US now. So again, you know, they did sheets for almost all of the songs on Sgt. Pepper in the US, but of course that would have been a far better looking image if they had actually used the color photograph for that. But you know, that cost money.
Of course.
And that's why some of the White Album ones in the U.S. were in black and white, you know.
Yep, exactly.
Right, here's a help one. Australian as well. Still going. Hard Day's Night. Australian as well. Look how quick I do it.
Yep.
Sgt. Pepper's. I can't believe I've spent all my money on this, Terry, right? Magical Mystery Tour while we're going. Not bad. This is one of my favourites here, Andrew. Not many to go now.
Yeah.
67 with their mustaches.
Yep.
That's a beauty. Beatles by request. Another one. Look at the yellow submarine there. And now, the original Sgt. Pepper songbook when it came out in 67. And look at this. And that's actually the same one they used for the sheet music you had there, Andrew.
Right.
And here's the back. As I said, there you got Ringo and John, sorry. And on the back here, you should have then Paul on the other side. But look what they've done here. This is the back page, and that's like from the album.
Yep.
So the last one I want to show, Andrew, I've got to show this. Not a lot of people would have seen this. The official Beatles Yellow Submarine magazine. Look at that. A day in the life of the Beatles. The Beatles yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Love it. Look at this. I love the colour on it, Terry.
That looks great. It's held up well.
I know. And look inside. Look at this. Hang on. See that?
So a few of the U.S. sheets of note, I think this is the one that Guy had earlier. So there's the first edition of Hello Goodbye that has the blue background on it. So this dates from, I don't have my glasses handy, but I think it's November 67 when that came out. And then that's the illustration that they used for a lot of the reprints in 1968. And then when we get to the White Album a year or so later, gorgeous cover with Paul and John. What I noticed, though, is some of the songs, primarily in the US, not so much in the UK, they seem to get them right, but in the US, sometimes you'll have a picture of George on a John song or Paul on a Ringo song or whatever, but, you know, all kind of mixed up. They were literally, you know, really what they should have done was put all four of these on the cover, which of course they did do, but only in black and white for a lot of the other titles. So that was obviously done to economize on the printing costs for the rest of those sheets. Let me see if I can dig up.
While Andrew's digging, let me ask a question. In collecting, you know, whether it's 45s, whether it's items or whatever, there's always these holy grails, the ones that everybody wants and all that. When you get into the sheet music, what's the one or two big ones that everybody looks for, and it's the one everybody wants, and I guess it's the one most expensive or whatever?
That would be the one I'm looking for.
Okay. Great segue.
Yeah, that was perfect. Harry, here's your $10.
What about the Get Back one? That would be a ripper. The Get Back. Oh, From a Window.
So
Okay.
This is From a Window. This was issued, I believe, early 68, maybe February 68. But the interesting thing is it actually says recorded by the Beatles, and it never was. So this may have gotten caught up in the reissues, because this was Peter and Gordon, I believe, did this song. Can someone verify Peter and Gordon? I think it is Peter and Gordon.
I think it was Billy J. Kramer.
Oh, exactly. Yes. And I have all of those too, but is this a 4-hour show? I can't remember.
Doesn't matter. Listen, Andrew, I want you to feel relaxed here. It doesn't matter. It's the show that matters. We've got enough to say. But I knew it was Billy J. Kramer, From a Window. What a great song.
Very good. Yes.
And I'm glad you had a look at my part-time collection.
Quick, somebody do something.
No, it's all right. Keep going. It's fine.
So actually, and that's another great segue, because Billy J. Kramer recorded a number of Lennon McCartney compositions, but so did this young and up-and-coming band.
Exactly. I Want to Be a Man. But Billy J. Kramer also did the song Bad to Me.
Yep. And that was released in both the UK and the US as sheet music. Let me see if I could find...
You know the story with that one, I Want to Be a Man. You know what John Lennon said, right? It's documented. He said, we gave that song to Ringo. It was just on one of our albums. Did you actually think we were going to give the Stones an A-side?
Okay, so now some truly, truly rare copies. So Tomorrow Never Knows.
And who's on the cover? It's not the Beatles. It's the Mirage.
The Mirage, but it's a Lennon McCartney composition. You got to have it. You got to collect the full set. This is actually, I think it does say on there somewhere, a BBC library copy.
Fantastic.
So this would have been in the BBC library in the 60s for this particular sheet.
Sure. Just carry on for a moment.
Cat Call.
Cat Call.
That one I haven't seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm really having a problem with the camera here.
We're with you.
Who the artist is there.
Chris Barber's band.
Yeah. This one is really neat. So if you get tired of searching for Beatles sheet music on eBay, start searching for the individual song titles, and you'll be amazed at what pops up. Joe Cocker with a little help from my friends. I think I need to do another book. I didn't cover these in any great detail in my book because I wasn't collecting them at the time. There's the US version of Joe Cocker's sheet. So yeah, it does get a little sane, and then of course there's also all of the Apple artists. So you have the UK version.
Yeah, that's great, Mary Hopkin.
And the US version.
Those were the days, my friend.
I hunted for this one for several months. So I had heard that Judy Collins had issued this as an album, and I think possibly a single. I thought, I wonder if that song is out there, and just kept hunting and hunting for that song title. And sure enough, popped up one day.
There's a band that did a version of Rain. Do you know which band I'm talking about? It was Psychedelic in the US. Came out as a single. I saw it the other day on YouTube. I've forgotten their name.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Can't think of who that might be.
I mean, it goes on forever, doesn't it?
Stevie Wonder covered We Can Work It Out in the 70s.
Fantastic.
And then another one of those songs that I thought, now there has to be a sheet for that. Hunted and hunted and hunted, couldn't find it. And then 3 of these popped up on eBay, all inside of a month.
Did you buy all 3?
No, I might have bought two of them.
You know what? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Is that a bit like song?
I think the first sheet had hole punches down the side. So I thought, well, if I don't get the other one, I'll at least get one of them. And then ended up getting the better copy as well. So
it's amazing what you can find on eBay, Terry. You can even find your book.
You're right. And I tell you what, I think one of the neatest things about an author is when you find your book out on eBay that somebody bought, you find it out there now for twice as much money. And I think, well, that's pretty cool. I know I've made it when my book now is twice as much money out on eBay.
Yeah, but also I can tell you, there's a book that I know that I wanted to buy on the Monkeys, and I got it at the cheapest price. There was all these inflated prices, and when you see a book and it's at a reasonable price, bam, gone.
Yeah.
So like, a lot of Beatles collectibles, there are counterfeits out there.
Cool.
So a few of these bear mention. If you look at a picture of this on eBay, it's going to be extremely hard to tell, although this is a bit sort of a brighter red than the original. It's a bit deeper red. The interesting thing is, if we can zoom in on this, you can actually see the fold line in the middle of the sheet. So what they did when they reproduced this, probably sometime in the early 80s, they just found a copy of Please Please Me and they copied it. So there are telltale signs. This one pops up a lot on eBay, the Counterfeit. And I figure the best way to figure out, like this photo has a lot less contrast than the authentic sheet, but also the banners are a little more gold on the original one. But if you can't see the top of Pete Best's drum, which is very hard to see there, then this is the counterfeit of that sheet. So if you can actually see the drumsticks clearly on the top of the drum and the banners are a little golder, that's the original copy of that sheet. So
that's great, Andrew. You're saving people a lot of money.
Yeah, although I'm spending a lot of mine, because when I do see variations like that, I mean, unless it's insanely expensive. But
no, but that's good. Why would you waste your money on a counterfeit when you're looking for the real deal? That's what I'm trying to say. And how can the average Joe know? No one knows.
Correct.
I mean, the Beatles are the Beatles. People just buy up everything.
But that's what I try to do in the book when the book came out. If I was aware of a sheet that I knew that there was a reissue and how to identify it, I tried to include that in the book. Yep.
But Terry comes across Beatle counterfeit stuff every day.
Yeah,
in
and
his
you know,
line of inquiry, don't you, Terry?
I have, you know, I keep notes on counterfeit, but the notes on counterfeit just grows and grows and grows. So somebody could do an entire book about that, about the counterfeit stuff, which is just amazing. But the thing, you know, the one thing you always say is, well, this was counterfeited in the 60s, and I go, yeah, but it's still 50 years old. So it's always rather odd how some people look at stuff like
but how
that.
would they know that they haven't stopped making these items that are counterfeit right up until today? You couldn't tell.
That's true. That's very true.
On the songbook side of things, I did bring up a few of the U.S. books, but as I mentioned earlier, I think the U.S. songbooks take up about 3 feet, linear feet on a bookshelf.
We appreciate everything you show us.
That's all of the
UK
UK songbooks right there.
We're happy to have a look at them. We're happy to have a look at them.
So they tended to do not albums by the titles of the Beatles albums, but they would put, you know, their own collection of these together. So they have different colors.
They're great, those.
So now we're into is that the third? Oh, we're still in the third. I guess I had 2 of the third, the fourth.
I love the colors. What are the numbers? Sorry, I don't get the numbers. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, sorry.
What are the numbers? What do they mean?
Just the order that they came out. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay, got it. Yep. Sorry.
So they, you know, later, I think they did those in late 63, 64, and early 65. So that's basically the main difference. Then it got to the point where
that's a beauty.
The Beatles 66.
I bought that on eBay. I'm still waiting for it to be mailed.
But then they had to do Beatles 66 and a half.
How'd they come to that?
Well, we forgot to put them in the first book, so we had to make the second book.
So what? The 66 and a half is rare, that book?
I wouldn't say it's particularly rare. No.
Well, I like the way that's similar to the one I got, except the Beatles are in a V.
Most of the UK songbooks are fairly common. I would say 80% of the US songbooks are fairly common. There's really only about 20 or 30 US songbooks that are extremely hard to find.
You might have to write a book just on the rare ones.
You know, I may actually have to do a book.
Well, when you do the rare ones, come back on. Terry and I are waiting.
I had. Oh yeah, I think it's.
This is fascinating stuff for me, Terry. After the stuff he's shown, I haven't even seen it.
I know, this is cool.
It's a dream come true. I'm drowning in sheet music.
I love it.
I literally am drowning in sheet music right now. It's like just everywhere. In a moment, you're going to hear a tremendous crash as one of these fake tables that I have suddenly gives way. Okay, so U.S. songbooks. Okay, so this songbook, you can usually find a few copies of this on eBay at any time. So this is a U.S. songbook. Issued,
that's fabulous. Guy, you're loving this. Guy, you're watching it, aren't you?
Yeah, of course.
So issued in February of 64. But the thing you have to watch out for is there are so many versions of this book. But if you want the first one, look for the one that says "Meet the" at the top.
Right.
Because a lot of the other ones don't say "Meet the."
Hey, you know how you had a half, 66, and then you had 66 and a half? Can you go back to that other book, the one before, The Fabulous Beatles? Can you go back on that for a second? So instead of having The Fabulous Beatles, they just have The Fab Beatles. No, you know the one that said The Fabulous Beatles? The next edition after that, they cut it in half and they went The Fab Beatles.
Saved on.
That's probably in another pile. This is quite nice. This is a sealed original store stock copy. So the beauty of this is, like, the back of this is just pristine white.
Where did you find that one? In a store?
I have to say, most of them eBay.
Okay, great. I'll be going on eBay tonight.
Up here in Canada, there's just no source for that kind of thing up here. In some shows, so some record shows, some people will have, but if you want extremely rare, this is the stage band version, I think, if you look across the top. Now, the cool thing is, we looked at the codes earlier that are printed on the back.
Yep.
So look at this one.
1264. 12th month, 64.
No, look at the first number.
F250.
Okay. So a lot of the sheets and songbooks have F5M, and the M for printer stands for thousands. So 5 would mean 5,000. This just says 250. That means they only printed 250 copies of that originally. So that means there are far, far fewer of those.
And I have 2 of those.
Very nice. Check.
That means there's only 248 left.
Yeah.
So I think with the Sgt. Pepper book that you held up earlier, some of these started having these wonderful little call-up flags. But I found this copy, and again, it's a pristine copy. So most of them, they're fairly beat up because musicians would actually use them. They would go through, they'd write their own notations because, it wasn't in the key that they were able to play it in. And then every now and then you even find the catalogs that Hanson put out.
That's great.
That show you all of the song books and some of the sheet music that were actually available. So they would send
that's like the one. That's exactly what I had on the back of that cartoon one. It had showed the Hanson books.
It would show you all of the song sheets that you could order, the individual song books.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the covers for the albums are the same, but then you get into some rarities here. So for the White Album, they did a Lennon-McCartney, but then they did a separate songbook for George Harrison. And who's that? I have no idea who that is.
Do you see the songbooks there? More Beatle books from Hanson.
Yep, exactly. Here's another sealed store stock songbook. I love this series. This came out in 1969, so they did 6 different volumes with different photos of the Beatles at different stages in their career. So this one was sealed in 1969, and it remains sealed.
You got some amazing stuff there.
Stage band version of something. So during the football game, if they wanted to play the Beatles something, they had individual sheets for every instrument.
Did you notice
trombone?
That's great. I think Terry's going to take up the trumpet.
Well, did you notice? Did you notice on the front it said "playable by all combos"?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And then this songbook really bears mention because when it does show up on eBay, the prices are just ridiculous. But it is literally, it's an early 70s songbook, but it is everything. And I believe it. It's been a while since I've gone through it. It's got the gorgeous apple on the back, but I believe it also has all of the Apple artists who were out at the time. And it's got a Surlocks binding, which is that plastic ribbing. And this usually some people want upwards of $200 for this for some reason. I don't believe I paid that because I don't actually think it's worth that, but. And I don't collect any of this for what it's worth. I just find it interesting that a lot of times the value sort of indicates the scarcity of a particular item.
Andrew, have you seen those songbooks that they did to the artists? The early ones came out, I think it was 2 volumes, and it says Lennon and McCartney songs to other artists.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those 2 little books?
Yep.
And also the one that's a yellow one with a gold coin in the middle with the 4 heads. That's a beauty, that songbook with all the songs.
I kind of had to draw a line at some point. I mean, I did with my sheet music book that I really didn't get too far into the 70s because, unless it was a specific Beatles album. So there is a songbook for the Beatles Hollywood Bowl. It's kind of interesting, but a lot of those, again, they didn't license the Beatles images on the cover. They were, the larger 9x12 format, not as collectible, that kind of thing. And I'm trying to think.
Rock and roll music doesn't have a picture on the cover.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just the title. It's a light blue background with the title. I'm trying to think of the publishing company that took over from Hanson in the late. I think Hanson has
Hal Leonard.
Hal Leonard, that's right. And a lot of I don't particularly find them particularly collectible unless the songbook looks just like the album. A lot of those are compilations that don't really bear any direct connection to the actual releases.
Right. I don't buy those. I don't collect those, but I collect like the anthology ones, or Tomorrow Never Knows. They even put out as a songbook. That one.
Yeah. The anthology ones are nice because again, they're done properly. They actually have the anthology artwork that Klaus Voormann did. Yeah.
Well, I want to say, guys, I think we've gone through nearly everything, haven't we? It's been an hour, 11, 12-minute show. And I tell you what, Andrew, you've done such a fantastic job to go through all your volumes there of songbooks, of song sheets. I mean, I can't wait till we start doing the solo artists because hopefully that's pleasure. A lot less, isn't it?
Yeah, and that might actually be, I've actually been asked by a couple of collectors, do you know what sheets were issued by the solo Beatles? And, I do have a binder full of the solo sheets, but it's, where do you stop?
Well, we'll save it for another show, Andrew, but I just want to say, on behalf of Plastic EP and Super Beatles collectors, I got to tell you, this has been one of the most fantastic shows I've seen for our second episode here. And Terry, it's just been totally fascinating for everyone out there watching. I mean, you guys really are Super Beatles collectors. And I mean, just sitting here and I mean, even just observing and taking out some of the stuff I've been collecting since the 60s, it was worthwhile just to be able to show you, Andrew. I mean, from Australia, it's great. And Guy, I got to say, your collection of songbooks and sheet music is just amazing there, Guy. And even your photo, as I said, from 1964, that was fab. That's all I'm going to say. So is there any other links you'd like to give out, Andrew, on anything that you're doing now if they want to look you up on the net? Like if they want to go and, as I said, check out any of your songbooks or anything that's online?
Check out Beatlology.com is where the magazine is available. I'll double check to see if the songbook is available. I honestly don't remember because the magazine ceased publication in 2009. But for anybody who is interested in collecting sheet music, if you go to Mitch McGeary's website, rarebeatles.com, I actually put a lot of the sheets when I was compiling the information on his website with the date codes. So it's a fairly good resource. But of course, the best resource, not so much that I want to plug the book. I do, this book was published 18 years ago. I do have, I believe, about 40 or 50 copies, so it is available. But as Guy mentioned, if you really want to know, the sheets, and I'm going the wrong direction again, that were issued, this covers primarily the US and the UK sheets. It's
amazing. All I want to say is until our next episode, Super Beatles collectors, make sure you're watching our next episode. Everyone's coming out. I want to thank Terry Crane, Andrew Croft. I want to thank, of course, Guy for coming on as well. Guy Smith, it's been fantastic. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay there, guys, and we'll see you again. See ya.
Thank you.